in our work on ESEA reauthorization.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for your willingness to work on this roundtable. Last month's markup of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was a major step forward in the reauthorization process, which has been stagnant over the last 4 years since No Child Left Behind's authorization lapsed. I expect that there will be many more changes to the bill that we reported from the HELP Committee in order to gain broader support from members on both sides of the aisle and to further improve the draft. Marking up the bill was the first and important step in the reauthorization process. This is not to say that there was not a lot of work that occurred beforehand to get that bill to markup. To the contrary, we received testimony from over 70 witnesses, including the Secretary of Education, elementary education experts, state and district superintendents, principals, teachers, and representatives of special populations. The committee hosted a website where people from all across the United States could express views and solutions, and each senator has heard from constituents both here in D.C. and in state as to the concerns, fixes, and changes needed to improve the No Child Left Behind law. Now that we've marked up a bill in committee, we're holding this roundtable to get input on the bill. We want to know whether we're developing fixes to the problems that have been identified. We also want to hear about what else we need to do to improve the bill as we move forward. I want to thank today's panelists, each of whom comes from vastly different backgrounds and who can provide a range of observations on both current law and the draft bill that was reported out of the HELP Committee last month. Today we'll continue the conversation of identifying problems on the ground with the current legislation and how we can create policy that provides flexibility for innovative approaches in the states. I'm also interested in hearing about the aspects of No Child Left Behind that today's panelists think should be retained as we move forward. Although there are many criticisms of No Child Left Behind, there are positives that we can point to as well. It moved the conversation around education in this country towards greater transparency of outcomes, and it invited parents to take a more active role in their child's education. I think that's been retained while shifting the emphasis from bad schools back to seeing that no child is left out. By shining a light on the children rather than just the schools, and by making sure that data were broadly available, parents, teachers, principals, and taxpayers can have all the access to information they needed to make decisions about children, not just about schools. That's a profound development and one I'm committed to retaining and building upon as we move forward in the reauthorization. While No Child Left Behind pushed us to learn about and address many of the shortcomings in our schools, it also placed strict one-size-fits-all rules on how states and local education agencies address deficiencies within schools. In the bill that we considered in committee, we removed most of those federal mandates and asked states to intervene only in their bottom 5% of schools and those schools with the largest achievement gaps. However, parents and teachers will know how their children are doing because of the information that will be reported for every child. We want the results to follow the child so subsequent teachers can make a difference. For all other schools, we have told states that they must take the lead by returning responsibility for accountability, albeit accountability that expects students to be college and career ready to determine what makes the most sense for their students. Although I hear the concerns of many that this bill does not include performance targets and other federally designed annual objectives, having the goals of students entering careers in college without the need for remediation is a goal that requires intensive, step-by-step, grade-by-grade planning, not some marker as to whether the student's prepared on the day they graduate. States will intuitively need to design rubrics that get their students on this path. They don't need unnecessary federal micromanagement that says how and when they should reach each progressive milestone. And as a practical matter, we've learned that No Child Left Behind did not handle this responsibility very well through one-sized accountability systems that focused on schools. The bill we reported out of committee attempts to remove No Child Left Behind's oversized federal footprint and return it to the states where it belongs and is most effectively implemented. As I stated during the markup, I do not support 100% of the bill we reported out. I would have supported a much smaller federal role and far fewer federal programs. I also know that Chairman Harkin would have supported far greater federally designed accountability. That's the essence of working to get something done, a bill that will include the broader Senate, the broader Congress, stakeholders, and those interested in better instruction and a more prepared workforce moving forward so action can be taken instead of just wasted debate. But again, this is another step in that process, and we will be further informed as more voices are involved. With that said, I'll continue to support a lessened federal role in schools, fewer federal programs, and greater transparency to parents through reporting on their child's performance. We need to place more emphasis on seeing that each child's getting the education we promised. I was disappointed the markup moved in the opposite direction within those 3 goals, so I encourage my colleagues to work together to improve this bill if we truly plan to move the legislation to the President's desk. In summary, I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for working with me on this hearing and looking forward to continuing the substantive policy discussion from last month's markup. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Enzi. Now, let me just take a moment to introduce each of our participants. I know some senators would like to also weigh in.